Hi everyone, Tris here from Double O'Neill, and this episode I'm going to talk to you about the building that I have made for my platform area. And it's something that I'm very proud of, and it featured in the HORNBY Magazine, well, this month at the time of recording in March, so hopefully you'll be able to check that out in the magazine. What did I want to do then? What was the set of rules I had? I had this area that I needed to fill up, and that was really important to me. I didn't want it to cover the whole area, but most of the area in there, and then I can add buildings on the side of it if I want. So it's pretty simple. It's going to go here, but I thought first, let's get some inspiration. So I went over to Bewdley at Severn Valley Railway because I love the station building there. It's small, and I wanted to take the inspiration from this place. And looking at it, you'll be able to see why I like it. Well, maybe you won't, but I'll be able to tell you why I do. I love the way that you have the little white bricks or painted bricks on the side. The top of the roof where you have the spiky bit out the top. I'm sure it has a technical name for it, but I wanted to use that as my inspiration for my kind of overall shape. When you look at it, the bricks, you can see all the different colours that are on there. You can see where things have been added on later on. Around the windows, there's beautiful details, especially up at the top where the pigeons probably go and hang out, or the little supports that go underneath the little ledge outside the window. And it's just honestly a really good looking building. Again, here's the white bricks, it's looking nice, and all the different colours on it. So I want to do that. The first plan was to make a mock-up. I did that. Could have made out a card, but I 3D printed this one on my FDM printer. And that was that. But before we get into the total build and look into it more, let's check out this lovely pannier pulling away. Honestly wonderful to see. So this is the building that I drew up on CAD. I use a system called Creo. It's a pretty decent bit of software. I enjoy using it. I use it for work. The building took a long time to draw. It wasn't 2 minutes. Putting the brickwork in was a considerable amount of work. Putting the windows in, all the other details. So it's not like I'm cutting out a big step off or just modelling. It probably might have been quicker just to start cutting out plastic card and get this together, but I enjoy modelling, and that was that. Once it was drawn, I then had to 3D print it. I decided to use my resin printer, which you get absolutely brilliant detail on, and for the cost of buying 3D printers now, if you can draw it, it's excellent. So that was that. Once it was printed, I get it back out. So this is an Anycubic Photon Mono X. It's a good printer. I have gone through a few screens on it now since having it. They do burn out from time to time or fail. I'm not sure exactly why they fail, but it's a bit frustrating when it does because you normally end up having a failed print. But it's quite simple. Once it's printed, you get it off the bed, which you get a little, I kind of see it as a chisel, but spatula, and that comes off, and then you put that back up on there. Once you got to this stage, obviously it's covered in the resin still, so you kind of just, I didn't have big enough pots at the time, so I used a small pot and I just brushed it off and just spent quite a bit of time doing it, and then I rinsed it off with water afterwards just to make sure there's no kind of isopropyl alcohol mixed with the resin kind of lingering on it to kind of fill in details. So with that done, I let it dry. I then want to go down the route of having the roof. The roof, it's the same process. It took a reasonable amount of time to print. You have to put them at certain angles and things to get them done. So here it is, all cleaned up, and you can see the detail. It's just stunning. Just chuffed the bits of how well you can get things out of a 3D printer. If you go back don't know, 5-10 years, no one would believe you if you told them what you could do. You know, draw it up on the computer, go and print it off just like that. This took, I don't know, 10 hours to print. The roof's about 8 to do the pair. Maybe my settings are a bit too reserved that it could be done quicker, but I want the details to be there. It needs to be nice and crisp because we need to be able to have the pointy bits and the bricks on display. Everything seems to fit nicely, but you get some kind of arguably warping sometimes, so the roofs don't fit as they would on CAD and stuff like that because of how I'm printing it. But I'm happy with it. Looking at the chimney tops, the detail's fantastic, and again, I call them spiky bits on the ends. I'm sure there's a technical term for them, and I should have probably researched that before starting this video. But hopefully you agree, this is a wonderful building, and if I was to build it by hand, yeah, I could probably do it. I don't know, I should have a go sometime. But I enjoy drawing and get exactly what I want, and I can print more than one if I need to, which I'll go into in a bit. After it's done, I go through the route of just taking off any of the pips that are from the supports that come underneath it, and you just gently do it with a file. Make sure, you know, well-ventilated room, you're wearing a mask, you've got gloves on. You don't want that dust getting into your fingers, into your lungs. It's not healthy stuff from everything that I understand anyway. It's resin at the end of the day. So just a file, cleaning it up. But one thing I want to mention is all I had to do was scale this up, and I made an O-gauge one, which you're going to see in some pictures in a bit. And I made this O-gauge one for Richard at NewJunction for his garden railway, which was a big project. And at points I thought, nah, what am I doing? I shouldn't be doing this. This is a lot of work. But I did it, and I got to paint it up. But painting this one, I used some red primer basically that you use for cars, and it comes out with a nice brickish colour. Once that's on there, it's dry, I start putting other colours on. So I start with some brighter colours because a lot of my other brickwork I've done in previous videos, it's always so dark. So I'll get this orange brickish colour. I call it brickish because, I don't know, it doesn't really look too much like bricks. But anyway, I put this on and it starts adding some of the lighter colours because you see some of the bricks, they're pretty light on colour. So I just work this around. And on video, I don't show all of the different colours that I've put on, but I put on lots of different shades. And so with this, I mix the kind of a darker red with the orange, and I put some on, and I work my way around. I'll add some browns on as well, and kind of get to the point that I'm happy that I've got a lot of colour, and I can always add on some other colours afterwards if I need to, once I've done the mortar. So working it around, it takes some time. All this, if it was a small building, you'd probably still take quite a bit of time, but I just wanted to try and do a good job of this really, and kind of smudging bits of orange here and there, trying not to take up any detail of the mortar line or anything like that. So just work your way around. So now I kind of dry brush a lighter shade again. It's almost a salmon type colour going on this, but it starts bringing even more brightness to the brick colour, because that's something that I really wanted to do, because like I said, on some of my older things that I've done, I've always had such a dark shade, which is such a shame, I feel, once I finish it. At the time I think it's okay, but dry brushing it and adding these little edges to the bricks and highlights, I think it really starts bringing up the brick colour. But at the moment it doesn't look like it, but I promise you, once we've finished this, it should look about right. Well, you saw it at the beginning anyway, and on the thumbnail. So after this, I add in little browns here and there, and I touch on the top, and because bricks aren't always uniformly one colour, they have various tones throughout them, I just work my way through and pick little bricks out, smudge it with my finger, and that's it. And I spent a long time doing this, especially when I did the O-gauge one for Richard. That took even longer. Even though it's bigger and easier to get to areas, it took a lot of work. But you can kind of see what I'm trying to achieve here. And if you do enough of it and do it all over the place, it will start coming together nicely, and they all kind of blend together nicely. So the more, I guess, you do this, the better you get, and it starts looking alright. And so then I mix that colour with a bit of the red, and you can see I've got other browns coming in. So I've got my light colours, I've got my orange colours that you can just pick out, as well as the brownish colours. So I'm really pleased with that. And I thought, get all this work done, and then we can do the mortaring. Now the mortaring, I use a tile grout, it's beige, and I put it on. And I really enjoy this process, if I'm honest. When I've tried washes, it doesn't come out as nicely. Whereas this, I go and rub it in, and it takes a bit of time to get this right. You work it all in with your finger. I was using a brush that I used to just brush it out of the cracks, but I use my finger as the main tool of application here. and I rough it round, and it starts working into those grooves and packing out where the mortar lines are. And I'll be really honest with you, it's satisfying. Like, have a go sometime, get some of the tile grout, and you kind of smudge it in. And at the moment you're thinking, oh no, that looks terrible, it's all gone the tile grout colour. It's like, yes it has, but shortly you'll find out what we do, because what we're going to use is a moist sponge, and that sponge is obviously not covered in mortar because it might carry away all of it, but we're going to put that on. So I use a brush to tickle out all the areas that I don't want to have too much of this tile grout, because I don't want that to go and set there. So you get your brush out and you just work all your areas that are kind of have been intruded on, so to speak, and you keep working it out until it's gone. And then I rub it again with my finger more and more, and it starts taking out that top layer where it's got there, and you see the colours starting to come out here. I do that because if I go and use the moist sponge, you'll have a lot of trouble with, obviously it will just be that beigey colour that's on top. So here's my sponge, I just work it across, and yeah, it just goes and sets all that, well, that mortar line really. It's good, it's honestly an enjoyable process. And if you've got areas that are still that brick colour and you haven't managed to get that mortar line, just come back in and you have another go until it's good. I'm thinking I should maybe try washes a bit more, maybe this would be a lot easier and a bit more enjoyable, but I honestly enjoy this. I think it looks great, well, the finished effect anyway. At the moment it doesn't look as good and you'll be thinking, well, why are you doing this? But it's quite an involved process that is very rewarding once it does work out nicely. So after this I then use some matte varnish. I go and work all of the area in a way that it kind of soaks in, the top layer stays that nice brick colour, and it just seals it up brilliantly. And I only got to this because I was getting stressed before, because I wasn't getting the effect that I want, and I just thought, well, I'm going to varnish this, see what happens. And once this dries, it looks good. It honestly does look good. And yeah, I'm going to just keep doing it this way, even though it's long-winded, but it's my long-winded project, so let's just keep going with it. It doesn't take too long to dry because I'm using acrylic paints on all this stuff, so it just dries off really, really nicely. So don't have any fear with that. And as you can see here, you can see the colours naturally kind of coming out nicely here. And once it dries, it doesn't change too much. It's just you get through quite a lot of acrylic paint, well, acrylic varnish. Anyway, that's all dry now, and I'm going to use my white paint with quite a lot of paint on my brush, looking back on that, and I'm just going to do on with the bricks. I don't know what this process is called, what they did in real life where they do that, but I just find it looks really, really nice, like on the real ones. And so I'd like to do that again on some other buildings. I don't know, I need to do a bit more research about building design back then, because it'd be wonderful to find out a bit of this. So if you know, in the comments, give me a comment of what this white brick lining was called when they did it, because it's kind of, it looks good if I'm honest. So it was quite simple. I just kept working the paintbrush in, trying not to get the other bricks, because that would be a bit of a disaster. You can always paint over the top again. But I was kind of looking forward to doing this because it really made it look like the one that's at Severn Valley Railway, you know, in Bewdley. So if you haven't been to Bewdley before, it's on the Severn Valley Railway line. It's really honestly worth going to. I've been a few times now, but at Bewdley there's some coaches behind, and there's a place generating some money for a manor, and they sell lots of modern railway parts in there at fantastic prices. And I popped in there and picked up some various bits and bobs, some HORNBY AA bits actually for my father. That was cool. And other bits and bobs for myself. So I want to go there again in the summer. It'd be really, really nice, and give them my money, because that will go towards getting another engine going, which is wonderful. So as you can see, I'm trying to do all the window lining, as well as in the window I end up using, I think it's the light stone or dark stone, I think it was a dark stone, on the next ledge before getting to the brick. So it's very tricky, and you never really see it unless you look at it really closely. And would you appreciate it? I don't know, but I enjoyed doing it. So this is the white. I don't think I recorded everything of what I did because there was so much. After that I used this kind of sandy colour to do the kind of like the trunking that goes around the side. I don't know exactly what that's for. I guess it was a style thing. I'm not sure exactly. In all the window ledges that were on the outside. This was slightly dark. I wasn't quite happy with this, so I actually came back later on with a lighter colour. But that's fine. It kind of gives it a foundation. But kind of makes the building have a certain style, these different colours, and there's something quite enjoyable about it. At the top of the windows you had the concrete sections which had that kind of, dare I say, a triangular shape. Kind of just makes it all look pretty, so to speak. So yeah, honestly happy with that. The problem that I had with all this, I had to do so many coats to go over the brown colour, the brickish colour underneath, so I just had to be patient. So I think I did 3 or 4 coats of some of these to get it to a solid kind of that sandy colour on top. But fine. Same as the white bits, the white bricks under there, they took a few coats to kind of get over that, because the pigment in the rail match paint was, I don't know, I find it quite low, and the sandy colour was from Vallejo. Again, that pigment wasn't super strong, but I wanted to keep the paint thin so then I didn't lose detail. You can see here I'm adding the dark stone around the windows, zoomed in a bit, not that it's in focus exactly, but you can see that just trying to work that area without getting the white and the sandy bit. So that was quite significant. You can see it more on the O gauge one that you're seeing a little bit that I did for Richard. But I felt I needed to do it. I can't cut corners, need to make it look nice. After that, the roof. The roof is slightly easier, a little bit time consuming when we did it. So I went for just a grey colour. I went for a basic grey colour that I had. Can't remember exactly what I used, but you get the drift, it's grey. And to work the area, trying not to undo my hard work on doing the brickwork for the chimney, because the chimney is a little bit hard to get your finger rubbing in, or the bits of grout dust to then set. But I did it, and I love this brush. This brush has got a funny angle to it. It's an angled brush basically, and the tip you can use for detail, but then you can load the brush up and do all the other bits. So I kind of like that. So you can be kind of very accurate very quickly with it and have enough paint to then cover big areas. So I honestly like that. So after this I made a really watered down wash, so we can then start having all of the areas kind of just picking out and highlighting, because you've got the edges of the little tiles, and actually they didn't come out so well in the print. I should have made them bigger on the CAD drawing. When I did the O gauge version, it came out nicer. So with this, I ran this on just to try and make it all stand out a bit more, and you can see they don't really stand out, the lines up and down. So actually in a bit we're going to paint them in. I added some more random splodges here and there, so then we can add some different colour to the tile, because we don't want them to be uniform, because when you look at the Severn Valley Railway you'll see that they aren't uniform. There's lots of different colours all over it. So here I'm now adding in some tile colours, and I went to town on this. I really enjoyed it. I added lots of different ones, and just going to go in with one shade of colour, add them in random places, and then add in another colour, and that's it really. You just take your time. Well, don't take too long, because otherwise you run out of time. But I just, yeah, had fun with that. Then I'm kind of adding little washers around where the chimneys would be, where you get a bit of dirt, and added some more washers later on. But I just kept it simple to begin with, just adding it in, and yeah, that was it. You can always paint it the base colour again and go from there. But I just wanted to add little bits in just to take off the kind of freshly painted look. It's been there for a few years. If the roof's got different colours, that means other bits have got different colours. But you can see the different tiles here, and I'm now adding in the dark stone on the edges of the roofs. Again, I'm not sure of the actual terms of half of these things. Again, I should have done some research on the names for everything, but that's going on there. And I love the colours of the Great Western, where you have the dark stone and light stone. They're kind of flesh kind of looking colours. They don't really look like dark and light stones, but maybe they do if you've had some stones of that colour. So I go for the dark stone, and then underneath it I put some light stone on, and it just really brings it out, starts giving it that authentic, not authentic, but that, that known Great Western Railway look. I really do like the look of it. So I just work that in very carefully, not to splodge over the other bits that then take hours and hours to dry. It's a nightmare. But what I would like to do is get hold of some Vallejo paints that are very similar in colour. I end up buying half their range at the moment, trying to find similar paints, because their pigment's a little bit stronger. You can put thinner paint on and it dries a bit faster, and it's less layers, and I don't know, you just get to keep detail. Then let's paint like the doors. The doors being done dark stone, and then I'm going to use light stone in the centre sections to make it look nice and make those doors stand out just like they do in real life. At the moment it looks a bit dark, so that's one layer. We'll have to do a few more coats to get that to pop out. Using a small brush is obviously quite important, but having a good tip is good. So you can use like bigger brushes to do this. I find that the small brush is good for if I just want to poke into corners, get the main details and go from there. If you want to do a door handle, again, it's a small brush is very, very helpful. A big brush you might end up getting some other areas. So that's that. The door handle, I actually wonder what to do with that. But it does stand out being in gold, doesn't it? Quite happy with that. So I use some of my Vallejo metallic colours, but it doesn't really pop out too much. After that, I just thought we need to make the chimney look dirty. If you've had kind of smoke coming out of it, you kind of need to smoke it up a little bit. So I just got some wash on that and just started adding that on. And actually it starts picking out the details a bit more and makes it look nice. I could have probably used the airbrush on this and kind of weathered it that way. But after that, I use a really thin wash and I use that to create the lines. So I work my way through very carefully and I just get all the area. You can see here I've picked out all the tiles and I work my way individually one by one, keep going bit by bit by bit, and you make all your tiles there and it looks smart. One thing I thought we can't not have, the double negative there, does that work? Anyway, I wanted windows to go on the railway, not the railway, but the station building, and it was quite simple. I used some bits out of an old Metcalf kit that was left over from the sprue, and I put a bit of white glue or PVA glue, and I go and put little blobs on, and I drop it on, nice and simple. And later on, if I want, I could add curtains, I can add lights if I really want to, and I put provision on the 3D print to do that. You can see the little holes, and that's something I would like to do on a later video, probably titled "Putting Lights in Your Buildings" or something like that. Anyway, what I wanted to do was glue on the gutters, because I'd drawn gutters and I've printed them off and I can glue them on, because obviously if it's raining we need to guide the water down into the drains so we don't have it spilling all over the platform or the poor passengers that walk underneath the water. So it's nice and simple. I've put them on all over the place. I thought I'd show us gluing it on in one of the areas, but just making sure that it all fits nicely. That's looking all right. And actually, look at that station. Looks splendid, isn't it? And I'm really pleased I took the project up. I only started doing it because I don't know, I wanted something and just started drawing something, and then you end up spending many hours doing it. So I've got the gutter drain pipe coming down the bottom. What I'm going to do is just glue that in place. It's nice and simple. What I can do on this building later on is I can also add some posters, which would be good. But with that done, look at this O gauge one. So this is Richard from NewJunction, or NewJunction 2, and this is his Garden Railway O gauge one. It's slightly undersized. I think I should have printed it slightly bigger, but it wouldn't have fitted on my printer, if I'm honest with you. And it's kind of fun, like, I managed to make that on a 3D printer, and yeah, it's a one that's a large print, but it came out lovely, honestly, and it looks better in O gauge because you can see the details better. Again, painted all these tiles and added the lines. It's just honestly been such a great project. Look at them side by side. There's a nice picture I've got here, and I've used the same colours for doing this, but the smaller one, it seems to look a bit darker. I think because you get more of the mortar visible, but you can see the two sizes. I painted them side by side, and I'm happy with them. I'm actually really pleased with what I've achieved there, and I think Richard was pleased with them too. He should put a video up, which I'll put a little picture of the front of his video here. You can go and watch him with them on the layouts, and yeah, I don't regret taking the project up because I've learned a lot doing it, and you kind of extend your skill sets really. Well, I think so anyway. I think I'm always improving. But on the layout, we went from this mock-up to the real thing, and yeah, it looks good. I'm going to add other details around it, add posters. I'm not sure exactly everything that I want to do, but I've got something now to look at on my railway, and I'm not regretting it at all. So obviously the inspiration was this from Bewdley. It's not exactly the same because I wanted it in my own proportions, but it was the complete inspiration to create this CAD model, which took a bit of time, but so pleased I've done it and that I can show it to you, and that it's in the, like I said, the HORNBY Magazine for March. I guess it's April's catalogue, but it comes out March the 3rd, which would have passed by now by the time you're watching this anyway. And yeah, really pleased. So I just want to say a big thank you to my patrons and my channel members. Thank you so much for the support. It goes a long way. It kind of encourages me to do these types of projects. I get a lot of nice comments from all of you when I talk to you about these things, and yeah, your appreciation and help is appreciated. So if you'd like to become a patron or a channel member, go check out the links below. You can click on it and you can support the channel a bit further. But anyway, thank you again. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've maybe learned something during the process, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.